The radical left has taken over the Democratic Party.
Hello and welcome to Think Progressively, covering politics and all the other chaos life has to offer. This is episode 92, recorded on Friday, June 9th from Milwaukee. I'm Joe.
And I'm Jason.
And on today's episode, we have a rare positive topic where we discuss the federal indictment of Donald Trump.
Yay, rare, positive episode. There's a lot of good news this week. I don't know what to say. It's such a weird feeling.
But first, the headlines. That's what I'll say.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
Let's start today off with country shaking. No, world devastating news.
Universe,
galactic, space works,
intergalactic, planetary,
Guardians of the Galaxy, Groot. After a bombshell claim, the U.S. is now being urged to reveal UFO evidence because they say that there are intact alien vehicles.
A whistleblower has come forward.
So let's talk about this. Who is the whistleblower? This is former intelligence official David Grush, who made this supposedly bombshell claim. He says that he has given, quote, classified proof of decades of Air Force disinformation to cover up non-human vehicles that they might have.
And he is part of a group that literally, that's what they're supposed to be for, is for finding evidence of
UAPs.
Yeah, alien technology or whatever. So, I mean, this guy is Fox Mulder. He wants to believe.
The truth is out there, man. So, okay, let's talk about this, because this was actually sent to me unironically from a friend of mine who then shared it with other friends of mine who were starting to believe it, and I got really annoyed. So I'm using this platform as a way to vent about said friends.
And this is a conspiracy that is popular even with the left.
Yes.
Because there is that kind of distrust of the government and desire to not believe the official story.
Correct.
That exists.
So let's talk about what Grush actually claimed. Grush said the recoveries of partial fragments and up to intact vehicles have been made for decades through the present day by the government, its allies, and defense contractors.
So this is a worldwide conspiracy.
This is a worldwide conspiracy.
So not only is the U.S. government have this definitive evidence in their possession, other countries do as well, and they're all covering it up perfectly.
Quote, retrievals of this kind are not limited to the United States. This is a global phenomenon, and yet a global solution continues to elude us.
And he said they even have bodies. It's like Independence Day.
Yes.
I think I saw the autopsy on Fox in the 90s.
He goes on to say, we are not talking about prosaic origins or identities. The materials included intact and partially intact vehicles of exotic origin.
He said different unique atomic arrangements and radiological signatures.
Which, what the hell does that even mean, Jason?
So it would mean, like, instead of the steel and iron, the elements that we have on Earth, it would have different atomic, different number of protons, things like that, different elements that are in these. He is not a materials scientist. He doesn't say how he knows this information. He doesn't actually have the evidence.
Hey, he said analysis was done, all right?
Right, by who? And what did you see? Like, where is the proof? It's just one guy saying all of this. And the guy that wanted to be on the alien task force. So big surprise that this is the guy making all of these claims with, again, zero evidence, just like there always has been.
Well, and that's what annoys me so much about that specific claim of unique atomic structures and radiological signatures. I mean, first and foremost, even with advanced technology, we can't break the freaking laws of physics here. So we should be able to identify something in some part of like what's going on here. But no, we don't even have that. And even then, you could give us details of what those are. If you've seen said analysis that you know for sure that there's some weird, I think he also talked about like weird morphologies, which is such a thing. You could provide us details with those things, and you don't.
Right. He doesn't give any actual evidence. Just all of his claims, the same claims that crazy people have been giving forever when it comes to this. And I will be very clear on what my stance is when it comes to this. Do I believe that intelligent life exists somewhere else in the vast universe? Yes.
I completely agree.
Do I think they fly around and visit Earth and crash land on it and it's all discovered ignored and covered up by the governments of our planet. No.
So-
When you talk about the vast distances that we're talking about in space and other galaxies, the odds that everyone is constrained by the speed of light, right? We've never figured out a way to travel faster than the speed of light. It doesn't matter how advanced another alien civilization is, they're still going to run into the laws of physics, as you said, that speed limit. Even at that, which we haven't even been able to come close to, but even at that, like 99.9% of the speed of light, it's literally one grain of sand on the planet trying to find another grain of sand on the opposite end. The odds of that happening are so low.
Well, right. And I saw a good debunking of this online where he talked about the closest hospitable planet is, I believe, like 4 to 5 light years away. So assuming that 1, there's life on there, 2, there's intelligent life on there, 3, it's intelligent enough to send spacecraft all the way to Earth, and 4, it would also have to assume that it can travel by the speed of light, which can actually make it within a reasonable amount of time or anywhere close to the speed of light. Anything outside of that would be nearly impossible. And why, and this is what drives me crazy, why would the supposed alien species that would be coming to our Earth, who would be so technologically advanced that could go at the speed of light
and find another planet
in
the emptiness of space, and then they crash
and be so dumb to crash and kill their pilots? What is happening?
Yeah, it's not logically sound at all.
No. And this is what drives me nuts about conspiracy theories, is that it can always be debunked and unraveled with just asking the question, for what purpose? Why would the government want to cover this up?
And how would they be able? So there's, and according
I don't
to
even
this
care about the how they would be. I want to know why they would want to.
Well, to not create a panic, because we would know we weren't the only intelligent life in the universe.
And that's stupid, because that's not how we try with any other technological advancement.
And most of the people believe we're not anyway.
Right.
But then I still go to the question of how, right? This guy says he was given this information. He had access to it. He was told by other people that have access to it. You would reasonably believe there's at least dozens of people at any given time. And he said this was happening across decades.
Yep.
So we're talking hundreds of people just in the United States have this knowledge. Multiple countries around the world. So now we're reasonably talking thousands of people.
Including adversarial countries that do not have our best interests at heart.
And no one has provided concrete, indisputable evidence at this point.
And you want to know what I heard as a reason for that? Well, countries want a military advantage.
But they know, like, this guy knows that other countries have this access.
I know. They keep it so secret, but not secret enough for David frickin' Grush to know that all of them have it. And I think it also goes to this whole notion as well that just because you can explain, not you personally, Jason, but you as a general you.
All of you out there.
Just because you can't explain how we have evolved technologically over the past several decades, that does not mean aliens.
How do you explain smartphones?
I was literally told, Jason, that, we'll get to that. I was literally told that we kept it secret back in the 1940s over with Roswell so we could develop the bomb, because the nuclear bombs were way too advanced for humans at the time.
Which would ignore all of the research and development that went in that is very clearly documented throughout
all
the
around
Manhattan
the world.
Project, which started well before Roswell.
And that's what just drives me nuts. And one thing I also want to kind of talk about as well.
It was odd that we just happened to be already developing an atomic bomb that had already been theorized years before, and then also the aliens came and gave it to us. Favorite part. The one thing that we were looking for.
We were looking to figure out how to do a nuclear bomb, and we had this alien supposedly crash its ship into our Earth, and then someone just goes, Eureka! I know how to develop a nuclear bomb now! Because if we were actually trying to keep things secret from each other to gain a military advantage, where is it? Where's our supposed intergalactic travel? Where's our supposedly crazy advanced alien technological weapons that we could have never have built on our own? No one has them. The US has some of the most state-of-the-art technology and military tech in the entire world. And it, like Jason said, it's documented how it was made.
Right. You can go back and see different iterations over time and obviously see the evolution of how those things are developed and how they work and all the technologies involved. Nothing is that crazy. It's very expensive, which is the reason why the United States is so far above and beyond every other country when it comes to military hardware, because we spend
A lot of money on it.
more than the rest of the world combined by multiple times in order to have that advantage. That's where our advantage comes from, is from all of the money that we could be spending to better everyone's lives. Instead, we give that to military research so that we can blow stuff up better.
So before you let your friend who is pushing BS conspiracy level bullshit, maybe take a step back and let them know it's actually not as plausible as they try to claim it is.
So let's move from E.T. to someone who looked like E.T. for the last couple of years. Ding dong, Pat Robertson's dead. Yay, let's all celebrate.
Okay, I'm actually really liking these.
I wrote one thing down in the notes for this particular segment.
Yeah,
which
I did all the
was
work for it.
Pat Robertson.
Yeah.
And I think that's all that needs to be said.
But we're going to say other things anyway because I put the work in. Some fun little life highlights for you. Obviously, he was the host of the 700 Club and way too famous for how stupid he actually was.
Founder of the Christian Broadcast Network, killer of many, many afternoons during the summer of watching TV during the day. For myself as a child, the 700 Club was the killer of any afternoon spent trying to just waste watching TV. I hate Pat Robertson just for that reason alone, but he gave us many, many more reasons to hate him.
In 2006, he claimed that he could leg press 2,000 pounds.
1 metric ton.
He also claimed that he could live up to 120 years old.
He almost got there. He was 93, which it might prove that there's a devil. I don't know.
He said feminism led women to, quote, leave their husbands, kill their children, practice witchcraft, destroy capitalism, and become lesbians.
Even more reason to love feminism.
He told his viewers that towels in Kenya would have AIDS and that women traveling to Kenya would have to be very careful.
If you're going to Kenya...
Make sure to bring a towel. He blamed the Las Vegas shooting on godlessness and a lack of respect for Donald Trump.
Lack of respect for Donald Trump. All those people that died or were injured in the largest mass shooting in American history, which is a very high bar to clear. Sounds reasonable.
And of course, he tried running for president in 1988, claimed that it was God's will for him to win, and then immediately lost in the primary.
That would have been the George H.W. Bush presidency.
The godless.
The godless, stronger than God presidency, apparently, of George H.W. Bush. He was also a horrible, homophobe, just terrible influence on America and our politics. Glad he's dead. Dance on his grave. Just very happy that he no longer draws breath. No positives you can take from his existence. Glad you're gone. Nothing but joy on my part that Pat Robertson is no longer among the living. I will echo the sentiments of Christopher Hitchens upon the death of Jerry Falwell. I don't believe in hell, and it's too bad there isn't one for Pat Robertson to go to. Next up, let's move to Washington and talk about some recent developments in the House of Representatives. As you know, last week we talked about the debt ceiling deal that was reached. It was signed into law on Saturday by President Joe Biden, and the Freedom Caucus Republicans are not very happy about it. If you remember, it was a deal with those lunatics that enabled Kevin McCarthy to be Speaker in the House after 14 votes did not go his way. And the details of that deal are not made public, but they're not happy with that debt limit deal that was reached. And on Monday, when House Republicans were hoping to pass a rule to set up floor votes on a bill to constrain, and I'll try not to laugh too much, the government's ability to regulate gas stoves, that surprisingly failed despite the thin GOP majority in the House.
So what happened?
Well, first, let's just mention that it was called the Gas Stove Protection and Freedom Act.
I love they just had to add freedom. They could not get away with just the Gas Stove Protection Act. It had to be like, well, we need freedom in there too, right? We love freedom. We have to tell everyone that we love freedom, right? We love freedom.
The final vote for the rule, and I don't think a bill has lost a rule vote in like 70 years. But the final vote for the rule was 206 to 220. A dozen Republicans opposed the rule. 11 of the members were House Freedom Caucus members or allies. The 12th vote was Steve Scalise, who voted no in order to retain the ability to bring it up for a vote again later. And of course, every Democrat in the chamber voted against it. This bill would prohibit the federal government from banning the use of gas stoves, despite assurances from federal regulators that they have no plans or intention to issue a ban on gas stoves. And this whole thing was kicked off by a report that literally just stated that having a gas stove in your house could increase the prevalence of asthma and other respiratory health effects by the people in your house. That's the reason they took that report that said, hey, gas stoves might be hazardous to your health. And their response was, you'll never take our gas stoves! It's our gas stoves! It's in the Constitution! And they got so worked up about that, despite the fact that everyone was saying, no, we're not gonna stop you from buying them. You can buy a gas stove at literally
anywhere.
Any store that sells appliances across the entire country. And there's no plans to change that. Their response was, we have to protect this with legislation. Now, let me just remind everyone out there, in case you've forgotten, this is the same Republican Party who complained about Democrats bringing up bills to codify things like access to birth control and same-sex marriage because they said they were unnecessary. Even though Republicans have stated that they wanted to attack them, including a Supreme Court justice
who said, here's the plan to attack them.
And a member of Congress. You had no such thing when talking about gas stoves. There was no prominent Democrat who said they wanted to ban gas stoves. Yet Republicans felt the extreme need to not only craft this legislation, but bring it up for a vote. So don't ever tell me again that they're serious legislators. They are clowns and jokes. And that's why we have things like Foxed in the Head, is because that is how ridiculous.
And here's the thing though, is that this is not Fox in the Head.
No, it's
not. This is a headline, because we have something dumber than Fox in the Head.
And members of the Freedom Caucus, including Matt Gaetz, have publicly stated that the only thing that they are going to vote yes for, that they want to see as the next thing brought up in the House, is a vote on a bill repealing a regulation requiring pistol braces to be registered with the ATF. So, anti-gun control legislation, repealing the very, 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 very little bit of gun control that we have in this country, which is, hey, you can't have like a semi-automatic gun that is basically an AR-15 without the shoulder stock, classified as a pistol, and then add a shoulder stock to it and still call it a pistol. They want to repeal that regulation because that's too far for them. We need more access to literally the type of weapon that is killing the most Americans in the country for like the last 10 years. That's what they're worried about. That's the only thing they will vote for. That is how ridiculous the Freedom Caucus is.
I don't know, man. These sound like gas stoves and
pistol braces.
These sound like some pretty bread and butter issues, that the real independents are going to care about.
This is what middle America really cares about. So let's move on to more ridiculous laws.
But good news about ridiculous laws.
Yes. As we said, this is a good news episode. I'm getting a little worked up about
I can't freaking believe it. A federal judge rules that Tennessee's anti-drag law is unconstitutionally vague.
The only thing I have written down here is that it's a good thing because Matt Walsh was crying about it.
Well, and we'll talk about that. In the judge's 70-page ruling, handed out on Friday, he wrote that it was both unconstitutionally vague and substantially overbroad and encouraged discriminatory enforcement. Quote from the decision: "There is no question that obscenity is not protected by the First Amendment," because if you don't remember, the whole point of the drag ban was to be protecting children from obscene behavior.
And you can see our episode on the conservative war on drag shows for more information. The main crux of that episode is specifically about this bill.
Yep, goes on. But there is a difference between material that is, quote, obscene in the vernacular and material that is, quote, obscene under the law. Simply put, no majority of the Supreme Court has held that sexually explicit but not obscene speech receives less protection than political, artistic, or scientific speech, which is, I don't think I've ever heard scientific speech used that way before, but okay, sounds good.
Well, if you're giving a talk on human sexuality,
Sure, I'm okay with that.
Because it's not only that it would say you can't have children present, right? Which anything that would be considered sexually explicit is going to be an over 18 show anyway. Just like most comedians that work blue.
Yep.
It's in a club that's going to be usually 21 plus.
Yep.
But the law said that it had to be basically in a strip club, that it could not be in any place that the public would have access to. So no place that children would ever be allowed in. So no normal club. Well, it would have to be in a strip club, an adult-only club.
Well, and we talked about this in the episode as well. Laws like this are intentionally vague. The judge here has it correct because it was vague on purpose so that the hardcore right-wing Tennessee legislature could do whatever they wanted as they felt need to.
Right. So it means that you could never have like the drag queen story hour. Correct. Where you have drag queens just reading books to children. Not allowed, illegal, because all drag performances would be considered sexually explicit or indecent in this law, which is discriminatory. There's no question about it, because again, some comedy shows are explicit, are not meant for children, but that doesn't mean that all comedy is outlawed or pushed to specific venues. And that's the reason why this law was blocked. We'll see where it goes from here. It doesn't mean that this is the end of it, but for now, there's an injunction against this law going into effect.
And also, let's keep in mind, too, this is not some woke super SJW judge. This was literally a Trump appointee judge. So, good job. Up next, more good news, and news I cannot imagine we're having.
Very surprising.
The Supreme Court, of all places, rules in favor of black voters in Alabama in their recent redistricting case.
The Supreme Court that has ruled incorrectly, in my opinion, on many redistricting cases, including the one in Wisconsin.
Yep.
Previously. In a, as we said, surprising 5-4 ruling. Chief Justice John Roberts, which is probably the least surprising, and Justice Brett Kavanaugh, the date rapist, aligned with the court's liberals in affirming a lower court ruling that found a likely violation of the Voting Rights Act in an Alabama congressional map with only one majority black seat out of the 7 districts in the state. The state will now have to draw a new map for next year's election. And now, this case was brought to the Supreme Court prior to the 2022 elections, which was then put off until now.
Yep.
And so this is really surprising, this ruling. And the issue is Alabama is 27% black. Only one of the 7 districts has a black representative, which it would be a 14% representation. So they literally have half of the representation that they should have statistically. And it's because of their racist district maps.
And I don't know how much of this you consumed, but I love their defense because they're talking about how they relied on the, I think it was like this automated map maker's testimony about how they made 2 million maps and all of those had one black district. And they said, well, if these guys, who the Democrats were okay with using, made 2 million maps with their computer software and they couldn't find one, then why are we expected to do so? And then there was an affidavit from another firm that says, okay, the fact that they only made 2 million maps is literally nothing. We can make, I'm not kidding, a trillion different models of maps for you in not very much time. time. So yes, you can clearly have more than one black district in Alabama.
And this is the same, basically, other than Ketanji Brown Jackson, who, I don't know if you listened to any of the audio from the arguments.
And she was getting them.
She has been, ever since she's been in this court, she has made some of the best arguments.
Yeah.
It was a great appointment by Biden, retired Jim Clyburn. You're an idiot. But the argument that she made that, you can't say that the founders were against any kind of decisions based on race. And she argued from the affirmative side of like the 13th and 14th amendments clearly target race. So how can we say that having any laws based on race are unconstitutional when we literally have amendments enshrined in the Constitution which deliberately target race? I would have went a little further and said like the Constitution itself is explicitly racist and targets black people as not actual people. All men are created equal. Well, clearly it's written in there that they're not because they didn't consider black people to be people. So obviously they were not as we would consider, post-racial document when they were founding the Constitution. So that's the argument that she made. It was a great argument. It was obviously more than John Roberts and Brett Kavanaugh could easily overcome despite their proclivities for siding with their fellow conservatives. So that's, I think, those types of arguments are why we end up with this type of outcome, because they literally can't mentally work around it and come up with a reason why they wouldn't side with this, it's a great thing. Again, it's Ketanji Brown Jackson showing why she was the perfect pick to put on this court of why, if you're a progressive and you don't like Joe Biden and you don't like a lot of the things he does, we're not.
Here's one thing you can be happy about.
But he gets you this because he appointed someone like Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Yep.
And that's why Trump, even though he's not really that conservative, he just panders. All he cares about is his own pockets, but he was willing to give conservatives the most horrible conservative justices, like Amy Coney Barrett. That's why the evangelicals voted for him. And that's why, as progressives, sometimes you just have to do the right thing and vote for people like Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton, even if you don't want to.
Well said. And I'll end it with a quote from Nathaniel Rakich of 538 saying, "This decision will cost Republicans at least 2 House seats, one in Alabama and one in Louisiana, where there's another case going on very similar to Alabama's. Possibly others, including South Carolina as well. And I'm also going to add in maybe Wisconsin."
Because we now have a liberal-leaning Supreme Court that may push a case to the federal Supreme Court with our own horribly gerrymandered maps.
So we'll see what happens.
Now let's move to Utah, a rare Utah story for us, where I don't know if it's a good story. It's kind of a Schadenfreude.
I like when bad people are upset.
It's like bad process equals bad outcomes.
Yeah.
I'd rather this not be the case to begin with, but this is what happens.
A Utah school district's Bible ban spurs protests among parents and Republicans. And I'm not kidding, they came out in full force.
It was near a riot.
Yes. This all stems from an initial complaint, which we've talked about a bunch of book bans in previous episodes. I think we literally did a book ban and censorship episode.
We've talked about it multiple times for sure.
Well, one of the biggest ways to fight back against it that liberals have is, well, if you don't like things that are age inappropriate, vulgar, graphic, let's get rid of the Bible because that's all of those things. So in a complaint obtained by the Salt Lake Tribune through a public records request shows that the parent noted the Bible contains instances of incest, prostitution, and rape, which it does. And although it was not considered pornographic to completely remove from the schools, it was moved to high school libraries only for its graphic content, which sent everyone crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if you are going to ban any mention of sex or sexuality in books meant for children because you're trying to target any books that come from a queer or LGBT stance or voice, which usually talk about sexual awakenings and how they knew that they were the way they are, this kind of thing is the natural outcome of that type of idiotic censorship. Because I don't know if you've read the Song of Solomon, but it's pretty sexually explicit. And you can easily make the same arguments against the Bible that you can of of any other book that has even passing mentions of sexuality in it, which is usually what you see in these school board meetings, is people reading excerpts of books out of context. They're usually 2 pages long out of a 300-page book and get them banned from school use. Well, you've got quite a bit more material to work with in the Bible.
And just to show you all that they have absolutely no sense of irony, when they were asked about how they compared the banning of the Bible to other book bans, they took absolutely no issue with other book bans, specifically LGBTQ books. They defended the Bible's role as a foundational text, saying it shouldn't be compared to other books that parents have challenged.
No such thing as separation of church and state.
Well, I was just going to say, we demand special pleading.
It's unique because it has to do with our religion.
It's what I want, damn it. And they said the committee's decision affirmed long-simmering distrust against public schools and those who make decisions governing them.
Again, let us all remind you that these books were in these schools for hundreds of years without anyone saying anything until conservatives started doing this. It's literally the outcome of their own policies.
Yep, man, irony is so mwah.
I do not appreciate being hoisted by my own petard. That's why I'd never liked you guys in the first place.
And again, this just shows that conservatives and Republicans who have been all about, what about the children? We must protect the children, are absolutely full of it, and they're lying to you. They do not care about children. They do not care about obscenity. They just want to control what your child sees.
Well, and they just want to hate specific people.
Yes.
Because that's, at the end of the day, that's all this is. It's just the fact that they hate gay people, they hate trans people, and they don't want their kids to know that they exist because they're terrified that their kids are going to be gay, or their kids are going to be bisexual, their kids are going to be asexual, any other variation thereof, transgender. That's what they're scared of. So they're trying to make it so that no mention that there are those types of people exist in the world can be said, because they just want it to go away. And this is the only control that they have, is going to this school board and screaming at teachers, because they've been told by Fox News and Tucker Carlson and Newsmax and Matt Gaetz and Ron DeSantis that the teachers are trying to turn your kids gay and they're grooming your children. And the fact that drag shows exist, and the fact that there are people that are openly homosexual and transsexual are in the world are what is bad, and it's what is making your kids this way. That's the reason. It has nothing to do really with morality, with offense. They don't honestly care.
No, they don't. Not at all.
It's fear and it's hatred.
And control. It's gross. And I love it when these people get their comeuppance. And finally, I don't know if this is good news either.
Not really. It's neutral news.
We're going to talk about it.
And in completely irrelevant, doesn't matter to anyone news, the Republican primary has gotten a few new challengers. As we talked about last week, we suspected, because this week is the last week that you have to declare, Mike Pence and Chris Christie. Mike Pence, former governor of Indiana, former vice president, former target of the January 6th mob, has declared his candidacy for the Republican Party. No one likes him. He has zero chance.
Literally the worst favorable ratings of the entire Republican field.
Yeah, he is super conservative, so obviously anyone who's moderate or liberal does not like him. And the super conservatives also hate him because he didn't try to overthrow the government in Donald Trump's favor, and we're literally trying to hang him. Chris Christie, former governor of New Jersey,
also almost killed by Donald Trump.
Yes, got COVID thanks to Donald Trump, closed a highway or a bridge in New Jersey because he was upset with some ruling in the state, closed the public beaches, and then took his family out to a closed beach and was photographed lounging on a chair there. Also a horrible person, but again, as we said, hates Donald Trump, like was cast out from the Trump bosom early on in Trump's Trump's presidency and literally almost killed by Donald Trump during COVID. He knows he has no chance of winning.
No.
He just wants to attack Trump and has been doing so.
Explicitly, like pretty hard.
Right. He's really pointing out the corruption that's in the Trump family. There's the speech that he was giving.
Yeah, did you hear that? That was great.
Yeah, where he talks about the fact that Jared Kushner got $2 billion from the Saudis and how that is likely connected to all of these documents that Trump kept illegally. And, who's he really selling all of this to? Why did Jared Kushner get $2 billion? Who's the real corrupt crime family in power? Obviously, as everyone else has been saying for the past 7 years, he is the only Republican willing to say it. But again, is no chance of getting anywhere in a Republican primary. No one's going to vote for him. He's just there to try to attack Trump.
And finally,
the big story.
The dark horse the Republican primary needed. Doug Burgum, the man, the myth.
Gesundheit. Oh, that was a person?
That was a person. Are you insulting my man, Doug Burgum here? I've been waiting.
I don't know who that is.
I've been waiting for a real. We had a whole thing about masculinity, man. I had a real need for a real man to get in this race.
Man's man.
A man's man. Governor of North Dakota.
And just in case you're all like me and you're wondering, Kristi Noem is the governor of South Dakota.
Yeah, so this is the other guy. It's the other
one that people actually know. She's South Dakota with the Mount Rushmore and all that. He's North Dakota
with
a lot of highways that you can go fast on.
What does North Dakota have?
A lot of highways that you can go fast on.
Yellowstone's in Montana?
Wyoming.
Yeah. What does North Dakota have?
Fargo? They have Fargo.
They got Fargo, at least. They got Doug Burgum. That's who they got. And all three put out incredibly inspiring launch videos that just make you weep. Tears of freedom and joy. And I will say, I was actually kind of shocked. You kind of hinted at this already. I was not shocked by Kristi. Kristi has been saying that he's going to attack Trump since the beginning. I was kind of surprised to see Mike Pence go as hard on Trump as he did.
Well, his going hard on Trump is saying, I don't think he's going to win the nomination.
Well, and that's what we were going to talk about too, is keep in mind that these are also all non-Trump candidates, and none of them have a chance in hell.
Mike Pence pledged to support the Republican nominee, then was asked, will you support Trump if he's the nominee? Because you've said that he is bad for America. This is literally Trump's former vice president saying that Trump is bad for America and shouldn't be president. How can you still say that you'll support him? His only response was, I don't think he'll win. And was asked multiple times, but what if he does? And just said, I don't think he will. You're the only one who doesn't think he will, Mike. And I mean, talk about just evading the question. Like, I'm not going to answer that.
He's just not going to win. Shut up.
Are you working with that fly?
I tried so hard to fit that fly in here somehow. I didn't know how to. I'm glad you did. Thank you very much. Because also news in the Republican primary is that the first debate has been set. August 23rd in the great, well-known city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Home of the Republican
We're going to be there,
National
Jason.
Convention.
We're going to be there. We're going to be heckling, and it's going to be great.
We're going to get killed.
We're going to be there. We're going to be heckling, and we will have a legacy.
Remember us, listeners.
And as part of the requirements to get to this debate, and we'll talk about all of them, are the fact that everyone who participates in this debate, the RNC said you had to sign a pledge to support whoever the nominee was, which I think is absolutely hilarious. And I have to be honest, now we do know that these three cowards and everyone else will. But will Trump actually support the nominee?
If it's not him, there's no way.
I can't see it happening. I can't see it.
But they would waive the rule for him anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Well, that'd be adorable. The RNC will also require all participants to maintain at least 1% in 3 national polls, or 1% in 2 national polls, and 1% in a state poll from one of the 4 early nominating states: Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada. They're also required to meet fundraising goals that have a minimum of 40,000 unique donors and have at least 200 unique donors per state in at least 20 states or more. And I've got to ask, with these requirements, who the hell is going to give to Chris Christie and Mike Pence? And especially Doug Burgum.
Yeah, well, Doug Burgum's not making it. Maybe Christie and Pence, they're well known anyway. They might get 1%.
Do you think so?
In one of those primaries, maybe. 1%'s not that much.
No, it's not. I just can't. I mean, here's the thing. At Christie's launch event, reporters were talking to all the people there. He didn't get Republicans to come to his event, man.
Nobody even...
He got independents.
Even when we were talking about, when he was talking all that about Jared Kushner and everything, like, there was no engagement from the audience. It was just silence.
You could hear the little, couple bits of clapping.
But he might get, like, the Lincoln Project Republican.
I absolutely believe that. And I think what he will get, compared to, like, Mike Pence, is he will get a lot of airtime because the media loves when people bash Trump.
And he might get, like, the Democrat votes because there's not really going to be any need to vote in any of the primaries if you're a Democrat, so.
But even then, that's going to be marginal. I don't know. All I'm going to say is the more candidates are in here, the easier it is for Donald Trump to become the nominee. So I bet Donald Trump is super happy to have this many candidates. We're up to 9.
The only one he really cares about is Tiny D Ron DeSantis.
And he's getting tinier by the day, man. He sucks more every little day.
That's the only one that's any kind of real threat. And then, obviously, the fact that he might be in prison. But other than that, I don't think he's got nothing to worry about from anyone else that's declared.
I don't think so either. Trump 2024, here we go.
Another Trump-Biden election.
Woo! That was as sad and the perfect amount of emotion that I was feeling at that moment. But thank you.
You're welcome.
M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous. Until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any one of them. That's the goal. When you're totally turned off, they've won.
Boy ain't right.
So for this week in Fox in the Head, we have a new
contributor.
Contributor. Thank you. That's a good way to put it. I don't know how to.
I will tell you, and I know I mentioned this when we were setting up this week. I didn't read this one until, even though it's like one of the first things you put on this week for the show notes. I was like totally on board because you were like, oh, I found the perfect thing. So I was like, okay, I believe you. There's been a lot of crazy stuff this week. I talked about the Steve Deese thing where he said that he thought Trump was gay for DeSantis, the way he was obsessed with him. Maybe that was a contender. But I was like, okay, Joe said he found the perfect thing. When I finally looked this up, I really regretted not looking at it earlier so that I would have time to try to talk you out of this one.
You don't like this one?
This is a different category of crazy than we've normally had in this segment. Usually we go like conservative crazy where it's somewhat political in nature. This one is
just crazy.
Art Bell, Coast to Coast AM. I'm a time traveler lunacy. So why don't you describe this one for us?
I will. Fox in the Head is not partisan, my friend Jason. Even independents can be really Fox.
Oh, he's real independent.
Because in an episode released on January 18th, Joe Rogan,
Ron DeSantis supporter Joe Rogan,
featured an interview with a YouTuber and quote-unquote investigator, Jimmy Corsetti, where Rogan brought up the quote Adam and Eve theory.
What does investigator mean?
I don't know, man. A groundless idea first outlined in the Adam and Eve story, a book written in 1965 by Chan Thomas, an electrical engineer who also claimed to be a psychic.
That sounds right.
So I'm just going to read this for you, Jason. I just want you to react.
How
you would naturally react.
That's great.
This is level-headed stuff. Hey, you know Joe Rogan, right? He's a straight shooter. He asks the tough questions, and he has the best guests on. The most reputable. Yeah, facts and logic, man. Facts and logic.
Intellectual dark web, Joe Rogan.
His guest, Corsetti, explained, quote, "This is science, the Adam and Eve story. The theory on that is that it happens in cycles of 6,500 years, and that it's a 90-degree flip, but 6 days later, around the 7th day, it corrects itself. He continues to describe a planet flip 90 degrees, and that because of it, the Earth essentially does a standstill, and the sun will be direct. We'll basically stay in the same spot, causing heating like we've never experienced."
And he's talking about, just to be kind of clear, as much as I can be.
Can you be?
He's talking about the magnetic poles flipping.
Yes, where this entire theory is all about once every 6,500 years, our magnetic poles flip.
Which there's no evidence for.
And I also like the fact that it's a 90-degree flip.
Right, which is not
a thing.
Is not a completely, that's a quarter.
That's rotation. You rotated 90 degrees.
180 degrees
Is a flip.
Would be a flip. And then the whole thing is the story, the whole thing that this theory is based on is like saying there is a cataclysm every 6,500 years that literally our civilization ends because of this change, and that everything starts over again. Right? This is tied in with young Earth creationism.
It is.
The idea that everything is only, human civilization is only 6,000 years old, which is demonstrably and evidentially not true.
Have you read the Bible? Looks pretty true in there to me.
We have civilizations that are still around that are older than that in Egypt, Mesopotamia,
So they say.
that are at the very least 10,000 years old. So maybe they miraculously survived because of God or something.
Hey, if the entire world can cover up aliens correctly, I think we can cover up more than 6,000-year-old.
This is
Civilizations.
just straight insanity. And
And this is on Joe Rogan.
right, the interesting part to me is not just like that there are lunatics like Corsetti. It's that Joe Rogan
Is platforming this.
is like, yeah, oh my God, I saw this thing. It's so cool, bro. I can't believe that. Like, he is just credulously accepting this, just like when he has Jordan Peterson, just like when he has Brett Weinstein on talking about vaccine conspiracies.
Well, I was just say that Pierre Corey guy.
Right. The unfortunately, the doctor from Wisconsin that we could potentially end up in a medical situation where he's our doctor. I would just run, not walk away from that. But he has these lunatics on. He has Elon Musk on. He has all of these people and just does never challenge them at all. Just believes everything they say as if they are the smartest people in the world. And he gives the same treatment to this guy, this Corsetti, Jimmy Corsetti. And it's like, yeah, I saw that video. Wow, that's crazy, man. And again, just nothing like, hey, this is not what science says. This is not what the evidence shows. Any reasonable person would not believe any of this.
I mean, okay, I just looked up his YouTube channel. Are you ready? Here are some of his latest videos. When you realize Sahara proves a great flood actually happened, Lost Roman map has Atlantis at Eye of Sahara, Africa. They scanned the Richat structure.
What?
I don't know, RICHAT, the Richat, and found something. UFO sightings depicted in ancient paintings.
Ancient aliens. That's about right.
So this is the reputable guy that Joe Rogan thinks is a good person to talk to.
And put on his show that has
That is
millions of
Yes,
listeners.
that is. I think it's like one of the world's most listened to podcasts as of right now.
$200 million he got to do the show. And this is what Spotify is paying for.
And I want to read because I don't want to let Rogan off the hook saying he doesn't actually say, this is just his guess. He's not actually saying anything himself. This is what Rogan says after that when they start talking about climate change. Global warming's not scary. It's global cooling. That's what's really scary. This narrative that just gets repeated over and over and over, and this fear mongering, and everyone gets freaked out.
He's literally talking to the guy that's saying the world is going to end any day now. And it's like, yeah, I can't stand this fear mongering from these people talking about global warming.
I said, based on nonsense pseudoscience. It's not to say that we aren't polluting. We certainly are. What, Joe? And it's not to say that we shouldn't improve. We certainly should.
Okay, full stop. That's all anyone wants.
But if the effing magnetic poles might shift and we might get hit by a giant rock from space, we might have bigger problems.
The intellectual Joe Rogan, everybody.
If we're going to be concentrating on nonsense, which is really par for a course with human beings,
At least, especially with Joe Rogan.
we're going to be concentrating on these things we're really not going to fix over the short term.
Yeah, don't worry about global warming, everybody. We're going to get killed by a meteor or the magnetic poles
I
shifting
say, when
anyway.
our poles shift with absolutely no evidence.
Don't make me pay taxes. We're going to get killed by a meteorite. So my tax money that might go to fixing the environment, don't worry about that.
And Jason, I do not want to do a Joe Rogan episode because that'd just be way too painful. And there's also this issue that I have goes far beyond Joe Rogan as well. But I'm so done with the supposed centrists and idiot influencers out there who constantly keep saying that there's all this supposed fear mongering when they have absolutely no freaking clue what scientific research actually says. They don't bring reputable people onto their shows, and they literally misinform millions of people every single day.
Well, and then what is it in furtherance of? Like you said originally, right? Supposed centrist Joe Rogan. What is his point? He's on with a guest that says the world is going to end. And he's like, yep, I believe you. That's crazy. We don't need to worry about global warming because we're just going to get killed anyway. That's his stance. That proves that we shouldn't do anything about global warming. That's his centrist stance. I'm not saying global warming's not real. I'm just saying we don't have to worry about it because we'll be dead soon anyway.
Why do people give this guy so much attention? Why do people watch this guy, man?
Because he's got a lot of famous friends that he has on guests. That's it. He's the biggest meathead, does way too many drugs, has opened his mind to the point that his brain has fallen out.
It's not falling anymore.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? It's hard to get any word in with this clown.
Let's get to the best news of the night. Do you have your...
I have my party favor at hand.
Trump has officially been indicted for the second time.
First ex-president to ever be federally indicted.
I'm going to love when you're trying to edit all this.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. Second indictment, as we said, the first one was the state indictment out of New York for running a fraudulent company. This is now connected to the Mar-a-Lago secret document hoarding and not cooperating with the Justice Department. It was a 49-page indictment that was just unsealed today.
Yep.
As we're recording, obviously, it's not today when you're listening to this, because I am not that quick when it comes to editing. It was a 49-page indictment, which included 38 felony counts.
38!
Relating to retaining classified information and obstruction of justice.
Wow.
And while you may be saying to yourself, Donald Trump has gotten out of a lot of stuff. He's gotten out of everything. Think of the 4 years when he was president and he was impeached twice. All of the extremely horrible things he said and did, even when he was campaigning. He admitted to sexually assaulting women. Didn't matter. But as we stated previously in the Durham Report episode, we were talking about how ridiculous it was that 2 of the 3 cases that came out of the Durham Report ended up in acquittals, and that when it comes to federal charges, that's extremely rare. The federal government has like a 96% conviction rate. That applies here. And to be charged with 38 felony counts. Now, I don't know if the sentence would be very long, and the instant there is a Republican president, they're going to pardon him.
Right.
And that might even be relevant to Trump himself, because he would still be eligible to be president, even if convicted. I don't think he can vote for himself, though, which is fun.
Well, no, in Florida you can now, I think.
I think it depends on the felony.
I don't remember.
Because remember, there's those videos right after the election that was being used to like show that there was so much fraud, and it was people that were previously convicted that were told by the state that they were able to vote,
and then
they voted, and then they had like SWAT teams come pick them up with camera crews, show like, oh, look at all these people we're arresting for fraudulently voting, and then all of those cases were later thrown out.
Yeah, wasn't that like
because it was just a PR stunt by Ron DeSantis? Yeah,
that was like DeSantis' like election integrity team or something, something like that.
So Trump may not be able to vote for himself. I don't know. We'll see if he is convicted. He would definitely, we do know he would be able to still run for president, which, I mean, that would be at that point, we're just a reality TV country, aren't we?
Yes, we
are. That happens. But 38 counts, 31 of them are willful retention of national defense information under the Espionage Act, 1 count of conspiracy to obstruct justice, 1 count of withholding records, 2 counts of corruptly concealing documents, 1 count of a scheme to conceal, and 2 counts of making false statements.
So I think when we read these things off, we should also clarify, well, not necessarily clarify, but we are going to interpret it, I would assume, this way. These are not for necessarily just having the documents. This is intentionally covering up that you had them and then obstructing the investigation.
Correct.
And we'll get to like why that's important later, but I just want to make that very clear. If Trump just gave back the documents right away when he was asked, not even when he left office, mind you, but just when the federal government asked him to return the documents that he has, that they knew he had, this would not be an issue. This would have never been an issue.
Like, if you remember, it was reported that Biden had classified documents, that Pence had classified documents. Why aren't they being charged with anything?
Yep.
Because as soon as they found out that they had them, they reported it and they turned over the documents. That's the reason. Trump lied about it and then tried to hide them.
Actively tried to hide them in multiple times.
So let me just read from the indictment itself.
I'm ready.
It says the classified documents Trump stored in his boxes included information regarding defense and weapons capabilities of both the United States and foreign countries, United States nuclear programs, potential vulnerabilities of the United States and its allies to military attack, and plans for possible retaliation in response to a foreign attack. The authorized disclosure of these classified documents could put at risk the national security of the United States, foreign relations, the safety of the United States military, and human sources, and the continued viability of sensitive intelligence collection methods. So literal defense documents and nuclear secrets. Those are the documents that we're talking about here. This is not something that shouldn't have been classified in the first place. That was just a story about him or something. Because there's a lot of pictures of him. Obviously, he's a huge narcissist, so no kidding. Anything that was about him, he tried to take with him. But he was also literally taking defense documents as well. And that's what this is about. He's literally putting the country at risk and just storing them. And if you see the pictures, there's a bunch of boxes full of these documents that are on like a ballroom stage at Mar-a-Lago that the public has access to. If you are a member of Mar-a-Lago, you would have been in the same room with these documents. There's other pictures from a bathroom where you see like a shower curtain. And it is, let me just mention this. Mar-a-Lago is the ugliest place on earth. It is so gaudy. And it is such of what an idiot's idea of like rich stuff is. There are chandeliers in a bathroom. There is a crystal chandelier hanging from the ceiling and a toilet that looks like it's a foot off the floor with another chandelier above that. And the ugliest gold trimmed pointy mirrors and boxes of classified documents in the background. There's another image of documents spilled all over the floor.
Yep.
That's how this stuff was being kept, despite the multiple claims of Donald Trump that it was all sealed in
protected.
Yeah, private rooms that no one had access to, and he was just keeping them safe for everybody. And he doesn't know why the government got so upset about it. That is not the case at all. And he does have a co-conspirator in this indictment, his aide and employee at Mar-a-Lago, Walt Nauta. We don't know much about him, but apparently he coordinated a lot of the storage.
Well, he was the guy that moved stuff back and forth on Trump's request. And literally after the government asked for documents back, Nauta would basically go and like ferry documents back and forth between Trump so he can go through them and figure out which ones he wants to keep and which ones he wants to give back. It's that dumb.
Some more information from the unsealed indictment states on July 21st, 2021, when he was no longer president, Donald Trump gave an interview in his office at the Bedminster Club to a writer and a publisher.
Yeah.
Was obviously recording this conversation in connection with the then forthcoming book. 2 members of Trump's staff attended the interview, which was recorded with Trump's knowledge and consent. Upon greeting the writer, publisher, and his 2 staff members, Trump stated, and he's talking just for context here, he's talking about...
It's like a piece of paper.
Well, he's talking about General Milley.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was the thing, right? It's like he was basically mad about an argument that he had with General Milley.
About Iran. These are things
Yes.
that are redacted in this indictment, but we know because this was made public previously. He's talking about General Milley and he's talking about Iran.
Yes. And he's basically doing this to try to win an argument with Milley.
Well, with one of his staffers.
With a staffer.
That's who he's talking to, one of the people that came in the room.
Yes.
So he's trying to win this argument.
Like, all this time later, to show how petty Trump really is.
Right.
He's going to get indicted to own Milley.
So with these people coming into the room, Trump stated, "Look what I found. This was," and it says the senior military officials, but it means Milley's.
Yes.
"Plan of attack. Read it and just show. It's interesting." Well, with the senior military official.
Also, no, you can just say
Milley.
It's fine.
Let me see that. I'll show you an example. He said that I wanted to attack Iran. Isn't it amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up.
It just came up.
Look, this was him. They presented me this. This is off the record. While tapes are rolling.
And keep in mind, like, on the auto recording, you can hear the paper.
But they presented me this. This was him. This was the Defense Department and him. The writer states, wow. As he's showing them highly classified documents of the attack plan of the United States, of like how we would militarily attack Iran, to a random writer who was writing a book on him to win an argument about how he's not a war hawk. It was General Milley the whole time.
Yep.
Trump goes on. We looked at some. This was him. This wasn't done by me. This was him. All sorts of stuff. Which he doesn't even know what's in there. All sorts of stuff.
You keep going.
Pages long. Look. Look at this classified documents that you're not.
Yeah. So now, literally,
cleared
hey, I'm going to
at.
commit a crime by showing you classified information on tape.
Staffer. Trump. Wait a minute. Let's see here. Staffer. Laughter. Yeah. Ha ha ha. Trump.
I'm going to jail.
Trump. I just found. Isn't that amazing? This totally wins my case, you know. Staffer. Trump. Except it's like highly confidential.
So don't show anyone, all right?
Secret. This is secret information. Look at this. This is secret information. Here, look. You attack, and by the way, isn't that incredible? I was just thinking, because we were talking about it, and you know, he said he wanted to attack Iran, and what? And the staffer said, you did. This was done by the military and given to me. I think we can probably, right? And the staffer said, I don't know. We'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to try to. And then Trump interrupted him. Declassify it. Yeah. See, as president, I could have declassified it. Yeah.
Now, see, as a president, I could have declassified if I wanted to.
Now I can't, you know, but this is still a secret. Yeah, haha. Now we have a problem. Isn't that interesting? So this is on tape. And this goes against his prior defense of, I can declassify anything I want by thinking about it because I was the president. He clearly states on tape that he knows he didn't declassify this document. He could have, but he didn't. And now he can't because he's not president anymore.
Oh, man.
I don't know where you go from here if you're the defense. Because he just admitted knowing that it was a crime and showing it to people that are not cleared to view it. That's why he's being charged under the Espionage Act. It could be much worse, honestly, based on what we see here.
And then just for reference, the indictment goes further to say, at the time of this exchange, the writer, the publisher, and Trump's two staffers did not have security clearances or any need to know any classified information about a plan of attack in Iran.
And you know who might want to know about an attack plan for Iran? Maybe, I don't know, Saudi Arabia?
Oh, he's so dumb. He's so dumb, man. Oh, my heart.
In case you wanted to know why he specifically took those documents. I don't even know what to say. after that. I will tell you what the Republican Party, what all the talking heads have been saying today. Their defense is there's two things that I've seen. One is that, this proves there's a two-tier justice system. One for everybody else, and one for that poor bastard Donald Trump. Which is the most ironic thing that I think a conservative has ever said is, this just goes to show that we have two different justice systems in America, one for the insanely rich multimillionaire, and then one for everybody else. And meaning it as the multimillionaire gets screwed. Sure, that's why people like Michael Cohen and all of the other January 6th defendants have gone to jail while Trump is still free. And they've all gone to jail for doing things on Donald Trump's orders.
Right. And should we also just say that earlier today news broke that Trump's two lawyers that were working to defend him on this case have now quit?
He undermines his own defense every chance he gets.
What do you mean I broke the law?
We have you on tape saying, I am breaking a law right now.
No, you don't.
It's all a witch hunt.
It's all a witch hunt. My Trump has like a weird, crappy, parody of Batman.
Well, I'm just basically doing Trevor Noah's impression. I do
you're better at it than
a bad Trevor Noah impression of Trump, which is not great to begin with.
And I'm doing a bad impression of your bad impression of Trevor Noah's bad impression.
It's like a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox.
Ew.
So, yeah, that's, to me, it's the most ironic thing. They finally acknowledge that certain people in this country have it worse. And as it turns out, it's extremely wealthy conservatives. The dumbest, all of the things that Trump has gotten away with. And he finally, and he's not even convicted, he's just indicted. And he's got two more indictments, by the way, hanging over his head in the Georgia case.
Yep, in Fulton County.
And it's a state case. So he can, again, so if either Trump or a Republican becomes president, they could potentially pardon him for this case, the documents case.
Not for the state cases.
They can't pardon him for the Manhattan Trump Corporation fraud case, and they can't for the Georgia trying to overturn the election case. The fourth one that he's got ongoing is also a federal case in the January 6th involvement. And he could potentially be pardoned for two of them, but not for the other two. And then obviously he was just
we're talking about a guy who could clearly become president again.
Yes. And has a better than even odds chance.
Right. And we're talking about
the likely next president of the United States.
Which of his indictments could he be pardoned?
And also, let me remind you that he was just found liable for sexual assault and slander in a civil case as well.
Yep. So what are the Republicans saying about this? Clearly, this has drawn the line. So they can't go any further.
Right. Well, yeah, right. So I already talked about the defense of the two-tier justice system. This just proves that there's a different justice system for Donald Trump than there is for everyone else, which, yes, but the opposite of the way that you want to try to use that. The other defense is that this is just evidence of Democrats weaponizing the justice system. And you will hear those words over and over and over and over again. Weaponizing the Department of Justice, weaponizing the FBI. That is like the agreed upon talking points between Newsmax and Fox and Republican politicians.
I have some nice quotes from Kevin McCarthy.
Oh, go for it.
Are you ready? This is going to disrupt the nation because it goes to the core of equal justice for all.
Right, two-tier justices.
Which is not being seen today. And we're not going to stand for it. This is a very dark day in America. When you think about what they're trying to indict President Trump on, you've got a sitting president.
The crimes he committed.
You've got a sitting president right now in the exact same situation.
Again, as we talked about.
No, there's not.
That
is a lie. That is an intentionally bad lie.
It's worse than the JFK assassination. But yes, Joe Biden alerted authorities when he found classified documents and turned them over when asked. That would be the difference.
In America, some of our greatest strength is equal justice, and today it shows that it is not. But what's even worse upon this is a leading contender to run for office with an administration of a current president that has the exact same documents. No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
Even worse.
How can you have the exact same?
Even worse from the aspect there are documents that President Biden has that he had when he was a senator. And that's where, again, like this is, I have to keep clarifying this over and over again because this is what you're going to hear crazy Uncle Frank say over and over again to you. But Biden does this all the time and no one cares about him. I've seen it already. If Trump just gave the freaking documents back the first time or the second or the third time he was asked for them.
And he still has documents that they can't find. That they have him, this one about Iran that he was talking about on this tape. They don't have this, by the way, in all of the documents that we've looked at that were recovered, that all these pictures are taken of. This is not in there. Probably because it's in Saudi Arabia right now. But these documents are still missing.
Let's hear from Trump's biggest rival right now.
Pudding fingers Rob.
Rob?
Yeah, he called him Rob.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did.
Oh my God. Where he tweeted,
Tiny D.
Tiny D, Ron DeSantis, Ron DeSanctimonious, Pudding Fingers Ron, Meatball Ron,
Rob,
Ron DeSales Tax, all of those, tweeted out, the weaponization of the federal law enforcement represents a mortal threat to a free society. We have for years witnessed an uneven application of the law.
Both of them.
Depending upon political affiliation. Why so zealous in pursuing Trump, yet so passive about Hillary or Hunter?
What about Hillary? I didn't put that in here, but that's another one.
Dude.
But her emails, they're still on
This
that.
shows how weak of a candidate Ron DeSantis actually is.
Right.
Because Trump has repeatedly teed up chances for Ron DeSantis to start attacking him like crazy and just having him knock it out of the park. It's so freaking simple to say, yeah, this guy who's being indicted all the time should not be president. Let me be president because I'm not getting indicted. Like this crazy one. No, because every single time he has to fondle Trump's balls like the little lapdog that he is. And he's trying to compete with him.
Like Pat Robertson is doing to the devil in hell right now. You couldn't see. I was doing like finger
I did not
wigglings.
see it.
You can't hear.
Oh,
look at that.
there you go.
That's good. Get that imagery.
Oh, yeah. And a quote from another Republican presidential candidate, Asa Hutchinson, who said after the report broke, with the news that Donald Trump has been indicted for the second time, our country finds itself in a position that weakens our democracy. Donald Trump's actions, from his willful disregard for the Constitution to his disrespect for the rule of law, should not define our nation or our Republican Party. He went on to say that Donald Trump should not be running for president anymore and should end his campaign immediately because they will be a major distraction.
Agreed?
Go get him, Asa.
Yeah.
Go get him.
Asa Hutchinson. And let's end it with words from Donald Trump himself. He also released a 4-minute video on Truth Social after this.
Which we will play for you in its entirety right now.
No, we won't. I'm just going to do the posts that he made on Truth Social before the indictment was unsealed. Any excuse to use the voice, I guess. It's been out of practice lately.
You're doing great. I believe in you.
The corrupt Biden administration has informed my attorneys that I have been indicted.
With a random capital I.
He always randomly capitalizes words. Seemingly over the box's hoax.
The box is hoax now.
Even though Joe Biden has 1,850 boxes capitalized, at the University of Delaware, additional boxes in Chinatown, D.C.
You didn't say China, right? I was upset about that.
Chinatown. It's hard when it's another word there because he's like Chinatown, D.C. with even more boxes at the University of Pennsylvania. How does he know all of this? And documents strewn all over his garage floor where he parks his Corvette. And which is secured by only a garage door that is paper thin, not like my garage door, best garage door everyone says.
God, does True Social have a text limit? What's happening here?
And open much of the time.
What?
Again, how would he know any of this? Because he's just making it up, obviously. I have been summoned to appear at the federal courthouse in Miami on Tuesday at 3 p.m. Call to violence, everyone, in case you didn't get enough on January 6th. I never thought it possible that such a thing could happen to a former president of the United States. He admits he's the former president, at least.
Thank God.
Who received far more votes than any sitting president in the history of our country.
No, you didn't.
Well, he did, but Biden, who was not a sitting president, got more votes. That was the problem. See, the population actually goes up every year, so every year there's actually more eligible voters than the previous year.
No way.
And that's how that works, but he's an idiot, so whatever. And he's currently leading, by far, all candidates, capitalized for some reason, both Democrat and Republican, in polls capitalized, of the 2024 presidential election. I am an innocent man.
In all caps.
It's...
What a freedom fighter.
Yeah.
What a revolutionary.
So, if you want to get arrested for protesting outside of the federal courthouse in Miami on Tuesday at 3 p.m., be my guest. Go with all the other crazies. The leaders of the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers are both currently in jail. So I don't know what support you're going to have there, but if you are so inclined, go for it. Maybe another violent attempt to overthrow the government will succeed this time. I'm not sure you can do it from Miami, but give it your best shot.
I mean, you can overthrow Miami as much as you wanted, or Florida in general. Like, you can have Florida. It's fine. I don't care. Thus ending our good news episode.
the very rare
good news episode.
So I hope you had fun. We did, for once.
Woo! Should we sign off with our...
Sure, let's overuse this prop. Let's go for it.
Well, when are we going to use these again? So see you later, and happy second Indictment Day.
And again, a continued happy Pride Month.
And happy Pride.
Thank you for Pat Robertson for dying during Pride Month. It was very appropriate.
Thank you for listening. We hope to see you in the next episode. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at ThinkProPod. You can email us at thinkpropod@gmail.com. And remember, when in doubt, think progressively. This is episode 82. No, it's not.
No, it's not. That was a while ago. And talk about some recent developments with the House of Republicans. So you playing Diablo 4?
No.
Me neither. Screw that game. What's up with Tears of the Kingdom?